Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. As you can see from the mighty cap atop my head, by the way, the hat is one thing that Jay Beal did not get. He may have more guns than I do, but I have more hats than he does. We are a proud service of Walther Firearms, who want to remind you that the PDP and all the other competition appropriate pistols do come with a money back guarantee. So if you're one of the few people that doesn't like the PDP for some reason, you can send that sucker back. You can get your money back and you'll be down the road onto an inferior firearm of your choice. Also want to remind you that Targets USA manufactures the, Joey?
Finest
steel targetry on the planet. CR Speed, as you know, makes the
finest.
And you're rocking the CR Speed, aren't you?
Yeah, CR Speed Ultra.
And don't you find it to be the finest?
Oh, yeah, it's not hitchy or bindy, matter of fact.
And of course, the mighty AMG-lab.com Commanderson timer continues to turn heads and blow minds by putting the time into the tablet. Hunter's HD Gold is the only eyewear that I wear because it makes the world look groovy all of the time. OutdoorDynamics.net remanufactures the finest competition ammunition you can dispense from a Freedom Seed dispenser. Instead of pulling the handle, you can just be dispensing, dispense. No loading, just dispensing. And of course, ShootSportsInnovations.com is so much to type because there's so much to see. And today we're going to be doing how to get from C to G with a couple of friends of mine. We have the mighty Courtney Abel from California, who is in no way a girl. We had that problem when he first emailed me. Joe, as you can see, he is not a girl in any way.
That's what I was wondering. all I saw was the email, Courtney Abel.
Yep. And then, of course, we're joined by another good friend of mine, the mighty Joey Sauerland. And Joey just recently got his G card unlimited, and Courtney would like to get a G card unlimited. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare these two paths. We're going to look at the path that Courtney is on, and we're going to look at the path that Joey took, and we're going to see if there's any similarities or any differences. And then at the end, Courtney is going to be able to ask Joey, and Joey can formulate in as many complete sentences as he can manage with proper grammar. He'll be able to answer Courtney's questions about how he could speed up that process a little bit. All right, sound good, guys?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Courtney, how long have you been shooting?
Yes. Shooting or competition shooting?
Competition shooting.
Since I want to say the start of 2021.
Okay, so about 2 years.
Yep, about 2 years.
Okay, Joey, 2 years plus or minus?
Plus a half, July of 20.
Okay, very good. And Courtney, how much dry fire are you currently doing, and what is the structure and the method of that dry fire?
All right, well, I usually dry fire twice a day. In the morning, about 20 or so minutes, is usually a bunch of 3-gun. So I'll either do rifle, shotgun, pistol in the morning. But then in the evening when I get home from work, I dry fire about another 30 minutes or so, 25, 30 minutes. And that's usually just USPSA.
Okay. And what drills are you doing, or what methodology are you using for the dry fire?
Well, I want to say maybe about the last month or so, last 2 months, I've been doing the repetitions drills, the first 12. I think it's the first 12.
Okay, so that structure has changed here very recently.
Yeah,
So,
about 4 months.
So the first thing we have to figure out on your quest to Grandmaster is a 3-gun more important to you, or is USPSA more important?
Well, because I would say 3-gun because that's actually what I started in. And I started shooting like USPSA just so I can get better at 3-gun.
Okay.
But lately, once we had all these rains this past winter, 3-gun is basically been shut down because you can't get to it's like a creek or something that you have to cross to get to the range, and unless you have a big giant 4x4, you're not getting there. So I've been concentrating a lot more on the USPSA.
Okay, so the reason that's important is choosing a primary. If you want to get to Grandmaster, time spent with those other guns and those other sports could delay or increase the amount of time it takes you to get to Grandmaster. And there's no right or wrong answer for you. That's just something to consider. Okay. And then with regard to live fire, how much live fire are you doing, and what does that look like?
I try to go at least once a week, because I know I can go to there's an indoor range that I'm a member at that I can get to at least once a week. And there's just a bunch of static drills, because certain days they have holster draw, and you can rapid fire. If I get there early enough, they really won't say anything if it's not any other people in there. They'll just let me shoot. So I'll do that once a week. I try to get to the outdoor range when I can, which is maybe say 2-3 times a month if I'm lucky. And there's more of I started doing a lot of the 6 and 6 classifier. A lot of the things that we went over from your class,
okay,
are things that I started doing. The 6 and 6, the strong hand only headshot from 15, the weak hand only headshot from 10. The vice prayers or the 6 reload 6.
Okay.
The accelerator, and then I'll try to set up some, so I'll have to do a little bit of movement.
Okay. All right, very good. And to get to Grandmaster, do you think you need to get faster or more accurate?
More accurate.
Okay. And Joey, I want to tell you, I just remembered Courtney's draw. It is a thing of beauty. It should be framed and posted next to the Mona Lisa, and whatever museum the Mona Lisa is in. His draw is smoother than the smoothest jazz. If you got on the elevator and heard the smoothest jazz of your life, you could close your eyes and see his draw. It is that pretty.
That's pretty serious. Pretty serious.
It is a thing. And Joey, just so you know, he's currently shooting a, what did you call it, Courtney? A P80 Glock?
Yeah.
That was the gun I started with in USPSA.
Really?
Yeah. Polymer 80 Glock 17. Drilled the pinholes myself.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that too loud. The ATF might come knocking on your gym there, Joe.
Oh, that was back before they had any restrictions on them.
How you doing, Everett?
All right. So Courtney's been shooting about 2 years. He just started using refinement repetition about 2 months ago. He's got kind of sporadic live fire. Doesn't sound like it's super structured, with all due respect, and he needs to get faster. All right. So Joey, you've been shooting what, 3 years now?
3 in July.
Okay. And were you ever in C class?
Oh yeah.
How long were you in C class?
I'm going to be honest, I don't remember.
Okay. And tell me how your dry fire has changed from when you started to what is 6 state championships now?
5.
5. Okay. So walk us through C class Joey through 5-time state championship Joey. What has changed?
Well, to start simple, the volume. The volume has changed. I remember the week that I first started dry firing. I did like 10 minutes in the evening before bed. And, I wasn't entirely sure what to look for. But now I'm usually doing 30 minutes twice a day and an hour once a day. So a total of about 2 hours a day of dry fire. And I don't know about how it's changed. So 1, the volume, 2, the specificity. So, when I started, it was just more minutes handling the gun, and looking at the sights. I didn't know anything about being target focused. I didn't know anything about, reloads or speed mode. It was just gun handling. And these days, everything is usually broken up, especially unless I'm doing match mode, where I'm mentally rehearsing a stage and then executing it just one time. Usually if I'm doing something, I have a specific point of focus on the thing that I'm trying to improve. And that changes so much, because as soon as the more I learn, the more I know I still have to learn. So every month that goes by, I think, wow, if I had only known what I know now, 6 months ago. And I think that every single month that goes by. So like a new thing that I'm trying to focus on now when I'm dry firing is picking a spot on the target. It's kind of an idea that I'd heard, thrown around and stuff. I've heard Ben Stoker talk about it. And, I really only started doing that after, I made Grandmaster like 3-4 weeks ago. I've only been doing that for like the last 2 weeks. And that's like revolutionized it's not necessarily picking the spot on the target, but it's the amount of target focus and moving your eyes quickly required to get the target into enough focus to pick a spot on it. That's like my new favorite thing to focus on is bringing the next target into vivid focus when I'm dry firing, and just kind of letting the sights of the gun follow. But that's new. I've been doing that for like 2 weeks. So I mean, it's always changing, and most of that stuff I learn by myself in dry fire. So if I learn something about where my left hand should go so that the gun lands more smoothly on the next target and doesn't overshoot as much, or I don't know what things with your eyes feel and look like. Usually I'm kind of do 20 hours of dry fire, and you'll learn at least 20 new things that you can work on, and that'll happen. So I mean the biggest way it's changed physically is volume, and the biggest way it's changed mentally is the specificity of the things that I'm doing has also gotten a lot more in depth.
Okay. So let's talk about target focus real quick. Courtney, are you familiar with the idea of target focused iron sight shooting?
Yeah.
And do you think you're employing that currently?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you ever have a conscious change from more of a sight focus to a target focus, or have you always been kind of target focused?
No, I had a change probably about a year ago. About a year, because I was shooting IDPA. I was front sight focused, trying to make sure that you're getting the good hits. But I realized that I was getting decent hits, but it was slow.
Mm-hmm.
So, once I became more target focused, the speed is picked up, and now the accuracy is starting to get there.
Good. Yeah. So I want to talk about what I think that means. And I went out and tested it. And I think what it means to me is the target is the clearest thing in my vision. And you're seeing the sights, I'm going to say peripherally, because I can't think of a better word. And you're seeing that the sights are aligned, but you're not hard focused on the front or the rear sights. Rob Latham discovered it in the late 80s, and he was afraid to tell anybody because it was wrong. Right. And he described it as shooting through the sights as opposed to focusing on the sights. And I think it makes shot calling a lot easier personally. Joey, what do you think?
Big time. Yeah, big time. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it, but if you're dry firing, if you dry fire regularly, you've got the subconscious connection to your sights. And that's the one thing I thought is in shot calling, even though I wasn't looking at my sights, it was much easier to tell where on the target they left from, because I was looking at the target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think if you get 100% front sight focus, like we were all taught to do in the beginning, it's very likely that front sight will disappear under recoil as opposed to seeing the lift. And I think if we can kind of look through those sights, seeing that whatever that deviation is, if there is one, when the sight lifts, gosh, it makes shot calling so much easier. And Joey, you've seen my 28-yard bowling pin rack, right?
Yeah.
So when I first got my Walther PDP with a money day back guarantee, like, did I get enough emphasis on that? Did I get that? Okay. All right.
I think so.
It has terrible stock sights because every stock handgun, most of them have terrible sights. The nasty 3-dot white sights, terrible for shooting white bowling pins. And I tried a hard front sight focus and I couldn't do it. But I softened it up and looked at the pin and saw the sights aligned and got a great trigger pull. I had them every time. And that's when I became a believer in target focus. All right. So Joey, you talked about your dry fire. You are pretty famous for having fired a very low number of rounds in live fire, or at least is that still the case?
Yeah, I think in my training as a whole, not just dry fire, but live fire, that's the biggest change that's been made. And I made that change after I think it was like 3 weeks ago, I made Grandmaster. Once I made Grandmaster, since then, I've decided to start doing some live fire on a regular basis. But
hang on, let's just clarify that. Prior to making Grandmaster, you had not decided to do live fire on a regular basis.
No, I mean, I had only done live fire practice. I shoot at matches, obviously. But I had only done live fire practice, gone out to the range to practice shooting my gun and doing stuff live fire. I mean, a scattered handful of times over the 2.5 years. I mean, it was, on a regular Monday through Sunday week, there was no live fire ever planned into that week ever. I mean, it was dry fire every day. And if I shot a match, and I was always seeing good results from that. And, but now that I made Grandmaster, I've decided that I'm going to start doing some live fire.
That would be, if I had the ability to edit the Arik Levy soundbite, like for the preview, that would be such a great, now that I've made Grandmaster, I think I might live fire a little bit every now and then.
No, that's how it is though. I think that the small area of things that you gain from live fire that you don't get in dry fire, which is a very small area of things. I think that's, now that I'm Grandmaster, that's a front that I'm going to start trying to make a little progress on. But it's new to me. It's new to me. I went out so far. The only things I've been doing it for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks now, I've been dry firing regularly. I'm fortunate to live close to my home club. Remember how it took me about, what did it take me 3.5 minutes to get from my home office to my work office?
Yes, we thought you were changing rooms at work. We didn't realize you were leaving your house and driving to your gym. We didn't realize that.
Yeah. No, I left my house, drove to work, got to the office here. That was 3.5 minutes. I'm fortunate enough to live about half that amount of time to my local club, at which I'm a member. And it should be said, I've lived that far from the club for the last 2.5 years, and I've been a member for the last 1.5 years. So I can live fire anytime the sun is up 7 days a week for free. But I haven't. But now, so a couple times last week and a couple times this week, I've gone out to live fire, and live fire practice is so new to me. The only thing that I've tried doing is just practicing shot calling. I've only done one drill, different target arrays, 2 paper, 1 steel, or just 1 paper, simple stuff, some with a little bit of movement, some not. But I'm doing it the way that I learned from you at your range, where I've got a white target on the back, front target is all shot up, and I'm pasting the back target after being able to say where the shots went. And that's the only drill I've done. That's the only live fire practice I've done.
And I think that solved the disconnect between live fire and dry fire. The only difference between live fire and dry fire are splits on the same target, right? Everything else is the same,
Yeah.
And what's interesting about limited, especially shooting major, is that the split difference is going to be a lot greater in limited versus open because of the recoil.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings into a question that Courtney had while we were waiting for you to drive the 3.5 minutes to work. Courtney is interested in changing between speed mode and match mode. And he mentioned he's done that once with great success and has struggled a little bit in coming out of what we'll call speed mode dry fire, where we're trying to get faster, and going into match mode, where all we care about is leaving acceptable shots. So what do you think about that? You've obviously become great at it.
It's mentally challenging. So most of my training is either speed mode or accuracy mode. And then match mode, filtered in. But my match mode is just like at a match. When I'm doing match mode dry fire, probably about 80 to 85% of that time is spent, I'll throw a bunch of targets and walls and stuff up, and 85% of that time is spent making my stage plan, doing mental reps and executing it just like I would. And I usually only let myself do it once, because if I do the same stage twice, I feel like, well, I've done it once. I know what I need to do different. Now I can do it for real, when that's not really how you do it at a match. So most of my match mode is actually just, doing mental reps like it would be at a match. But between speed and, between speed and match mode, my match mode sometimes is difficult to discern from my accuracy mode. Because if you're gonna wait until you have an acceptable shot, most of the time that acceptable shot is going to be at least a sight picture in the alpha, which is my same definition or a sight picture in the center of the available target area, which in my accuracy mode is basically the exact same thing. It's just the real centered center of the available target area. So those two kind of blend together sometimes, but between speed mode and match mode, you've just got to be willing to aggressively, and usually stupidly, usually outside of par time that's unrealistically low, and I'll just find out what it takes to beat it. So I'll put up 4 targets and I'll say, I wonder what it would take me to get a sight picture on these 4 targets with a draw in 1.4 seconds. Something just ridiculous, right? For a draw and 4 sight pictures. And that's usually what you have to do. And it's hard because you still got to see your sights in speed mode. As long as you know where they were. They don't have to be at an acceptable sight picture, but you still have to know where they were. And it is kind of tough when I'm doing speed mode, because I'll be seeing my sights, off in the delta or, over the shoulder of the target. And it gets really frustrating watching your sights and not get acceptable sight pictures. And it's tough to tell yourself, this is why I'm here, is to do it at this speed. And that's the only thing that matters right now. So I think you just get a more robust definition of success. So when you're in speed mode, you're doing speed mode, right? You're gonna put the sights of the gun from here to here in that amount of time, and you're gonna find out what it takes to do that. Period. When you're in match mode, you're getting acceptable sight pictures at whatever speed they come. Yeah, but it does get frustrating. Anytime I'm doing accuracy mode, I might start feeling like, man, that took me a while to get those perfect sight pictures, right? Or sometimes when I'm in speed mode, I'm thinking, man, that was sloppy. But you really got to be able to brush that aside and say, hey, why am I here? I'm here to do this in 1.4 seconds, because getting a draw and 4 sight pictures on these targets in 1.4 seconds would be crazy good. The shooter who can do that would be crazy good.
Courtney, does that answer your question about switching from speed mode to match mode?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, so basically for you, match mode is the same as just accuracy mode. That would be the same.
Very similar. Yeah, they're both, the goal in both is the center of the available target area. And the only difference between them is how long I'm going to wait to get how close to that center of because the center of the available target area is a very tiny point, right? In accuracy mode, I'm going to wait and try and use the amount of vision required to get the sights directly on top of that point. Whereas in match mode, I'm only going to wait long enough for them to be close enough to that point for it to be acceptable.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if so, when you're dry firing, right? Mm-hmm. What percentage would you say where you're speed mode focused, and then you say, okay, now I'm gonna be more of an accuracy mode focus. Because when I dry fire, it's like really it's just speed mode. That's, you know, I'm just trying to get as fast as I can, you know, but still, you know, trying to get an acceptable sight picture, but not a good crisp, you know, they're not a good crisp boom, boom, boom type of sight picture. It's a boom, 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 you know, as long as I saw it there, you know.
I think, so this is another thing that, you know, like I said, my dry fire is always evolving, right? Every week I learn something new. And I think, man, if I'd, you know, like if I'd really known that 2 months ago, I'd be light years ahead of where I am now. So there have been times when, like actually, I'd say for the majority of my dry fire career, speed mode has been the majority of what I've been doing. But about maybe the last month or so, accuracy mode has taken the majority, probably like 60 to 70%. And part of that's because I intentionally did it that way, just because I was beating people with my speed a lot. But you know, my accuracy at the matches, what was, you know, where there was more room for improvement, I would get beat by somebody who I was faster than on every single stage. And I would think, okay, well, you know, the hits need to improve then. But I mean, it really changes based on what you deduce you need to work on from your scores at matches, and then also where I'm learning the most. So there'll be times when I'll do stuff in speed mode, and I'm doing stuff crazy fast. I'm pushing my speed, I'm pushing my body, I'm pushing the gun, and it's very untechnical, but I'll just feel like I'm not getting as much out of it. You know, like, man, I really feel like I'm maxing out my speed right now. I feel like this doesn't go any faster. Well, you know, could the sights have been more centered on the available target area? Yeah, well, there's more room to improve there then. So it morphs, it changes. And I think that's one of the big things that'll help with, you know, consistency and accountability in your dry fire too, is you always want to balance consistency with variety, right? So if you never do the same thing twice, you're not going to get better at it. But if you always do the exact same thing every single day, you're probably also not going to get a lot better. So if I feel that I can get better working on something else, I'll shift more towards that. If there's something that I learned recently that I think will be really beneficial, I'll put more emphasis on that. But yeah, it varies.
So what I think is important, Courtney, is you have to know yourself, right? You said to get where you want to go, you need to get more accurate. And I've had you in class. We did a dry fire tune-up with you. You're quick. You're super quick, right? So that would support you spending a little bit more time in match mode, where whatever you're going to shoot, all you care about is leaving only acceptable shots on those targets. And the key to it is without consciously slowing down. The big mistake people make when they enter match mode, either at matches or in live fire or dry fire, is they want to turn down the speed. And then they come out of it and their experience goes, well, I shot great, but I was slow. Well, that's typically because they consciously slowed down. And yes, leaving only acceptable shots is going to result in some amount of slowing down from crazy squirrel mode, but it shouldn't be a conscious choice. It should be a result of what you're seeing. That'd be another great Art Levy soundbite moment, by the way. It'd be really good to, you know, run those two together. All right, Courtney, does that cover speed mode versus match mode?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Joey, what has been your biggest breakthrough in your stratospheric rise from C to G?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say mental management. And that's the short answer. But yeah, it's a tough question. Biggest single breakthrough? I'll tell you what it is. So one, mental management, just as a whole, right? Consistent. They say that, you know, your percentile, your classification is equivalent to what percent of the game is mental. So, you know, if you're up here at 60, 70, 80, 90%, I mean, mental management is the key to a consistent mental performance if you use it. So that's probably the one biggest thing. But I'd say the other thing is the thing that you read that was in my email to you the other week. And that's not, if you're always thinking about like, oh, I want to be grandmaster, I want to be grandmaster, it's very outcome focused. And just as mental management will teach you, outcome focus is probably not going to get you the outcome that you want, but focusing on the process that gets you that outcome, that's where your focus should be. So like I said, you know, if there was ever a day that I was, you know, I got these new grips on my gun and they're tearing my hands up, right? So I've got like 3-4 Band-Aids on my hand and I'm like, man, I really don't feel like dry firing today. You know, it's rainy. You know, I don't want to drive up to the range and, you know, walk in the rain and my hands hurt. But I was like, but the shooter I want to be, you know, I picture someone who I respect talking about me behind my back and saying, oh yeah, well, you know, that's Joey Sauerland, right? He's not going to not go to the range just because it's raining. He's Joey Sauerland. And then I think, all right, well, shit, now I have to go.
You know, what's interesting about that is you talk about replacing the goal with the process. For me, it was very similar, but I was so obsessed with it, and I didn't know anything about mental management back then. But what I would ask myself constantly is, what would a grandmaster do? Right? And I didn't even know the answer. I was just making them up. Right. This was the early 90s when the internet was, you know, right? You may not even remember those days, Joey. You might not have even been alive during those days.
The early 90s?
Yeah. Courtney remembers those days of dial-up internet. So you couldn't go look, you couldn't go ask anybody a question. And so I would get up in the morning at 6 o'clock. What would a grandmaster do? He would go dry fire. I'd get home from work 7 o'clock, work in retail in the record stores. You'll have to Google those too. Those used to be a thing. Courtney knows. And what would a grandmaster do? He would go dry fire. So I was using my obsession with that goal to make those same kinds of decisions. And for me, it was never a question of whether it was going to happen. It was a question of how long it's going to take. And I didn't care. I didn't care if it took 9 months or 9 years. It was going to happen. Right. And that brings up the rage to master, which you have had ever since I've known you.
The what?
The rage to master. Have you not heard that term before?
The rage to master?
The rage to master. It's when somebody gets obsessed with something and they can't do much else.
Oh, the rage to master something.
Correct.
Not the rage to master class.
Well, no, the rage to master, right? So there's this book called the Talent Code. This dude named Daniel Coyle wrote a book called The Talent Code. And he was trying to figure out whether brilliant performers are born. So like it's the classic nature versus nurture, right? And so what he found was every 8-year-old chess prodigy and every 6-year-old piano prodigy had roughly 10,000 hours of exposure to chess or piano in those 6 or 8 years. They heard the piano before they started playing it. They were around chess as a baby. So he discovered that above average performers are not born, they are created by their environment. And he was the guy that created that term rage to master. And all of those prodigies had it. They discovered whatever it was. They got obsessed with it. That's just like when they asked Tiger Woods' dad, how do you make him practice? And Tiger Woods' dad said, make him practice. I can't make him stop practicing, right? That's what the rage to master looks like, right? So you said something very famous during mental management that I now revisit in every mental management class.
I did?
Yes. We talked about an environment at work in which it is critical for you to control your thoughts. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about that at all, or would you like to just let that hang the way it is?
Refresh me a little bit, and then I'll chime in.
You mentioned a group of ladies that came in dressed in such a way that a man who was interacting with them might have trouble controlling their thoughts.
Sure.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then I said to you, Joey, what are the consequences for failing to control your thoughts? And you said, do you remember?
I don't, Steve. Spill it.
You told me that the consequences for failing to control your thoughts would be catastrophic.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I remember. But I vaguely remember the example of the girls in the gym. But where I learned that lesson was at area 4, because I remember that was the match where I learned how important controlling your thoughts was, because I showed up, I looked at Blake Miguez's hit factors on the stages because he shot on staff day. And before I had even arrived at the range, I was in the airport in Oklahoma. And I said, yo, I'm going to have to try really hard to beat this guy's scores. I'm going to have to go fast, and then the whole time, every time I shot a stage, trying to beat his scores, and, my performance suffered as a result of trying to do one specific thing really hard. I got upset. And now in hindsight, I could shoot, something could go horribly wrong on a stage, but it meant my mental management program would not allow for that to affect my next stage. But at the time, yeah, it was the most clear example of my thoughts determining my performance, and nothing else. It wasn't my gun. It wasn't my equipment. It wasn't the athleticism. It wasn't anything else. It was just what thoughts I chose to have.
That's right. Failure to control your thoughts is catastrophic in shooting and in physical fitness training with women who may be dressed in such a way that controlling your thoughts is difficult. That's what you learned.
Sure.
All right. So, Joey, do you think Courtney is making a significant mistake shooting minor as he seeks to become a Grandmaster Unlimited?
No.
It's right. Nils showed everybody it can be done.
Yeah, and not because of Nils. I like to, when people are better than you, you like to try and tear them down. Unless you're a good person, I guess, and you like to support other people. That's not me though. So me, anytime someone says, "Oh yeah, Nils Jonathan, did it with minor," I'm like, well, he had less recoil, he had higher magazine capacity, and blah 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 blah, whatever. Right? I'm trying to tear him down. But it'll definitely be easier to make Grandmaster if you're shooting major. But go ahead and shoot the Polymer 80 in 9mm through A class. Then make A class with that. You should be able to do that fine. And then once you've had time to shoot other people's guns at big matches, you decide what kind of bigger 40 caliber metal gun you want to get.
All right, and you also switched from the CZ TSO, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And now you're shooting Masterpiece Arms, and this is one of my favorite stories, right? Because Travis Tomasi was my first internet pen pal I ever had. One of the very first emails, if not the first email I ever sent, was to Travis Tomasi, because I had all these questions about Caspians. He and I both shot Caspians. And he said, do this, don't do that, do this, don't worry about it. Travis Tomasi saved me at least a year of screwing around, because I didn't go try 10 different powders. I just asked Travis what to do, and he told me what to do, and I did it. Right. So I saved all that time. And then your other teammate, Andrew Hyder, was one of the very first shooters that I was able to help. He was a new shooter, and I was already a Grandmaster. I was able to help him a little bit. And then I was able to help you a little bit. And now the three of you are on the same team. It brings me so much joy to think about those three dudes. It is just the three of you still, right? On the primary team, or is there more than that?
We've got some other guys now. I don't know if you know any of them though. David Lyell's on the team. He's an employee though. He works at the gun shop. Got Greg. I don't think you know him. I think those are the people who you know.
So basically, it brings me a great deal of joy to have those three people all in the same organization. I just need you to know it makes me very, very happy to see that, because it's just like my whole career and on one little team. It's great. It's wonderful. So, Courtney,
yeah,
you're already pretty fast. I think the key to improving your accuracy is going to be 100% mental. Okay. And that means when you're shooting for score or when you're practicing shooting for score, you're going to have the single-minded focus of leaving only acceptable shots on target without consciously slowing down. Because you're already fast. What is your current, so you are C class right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And the only thing I'll say about 3-gun is whatever time you spend in 3-gun could delay how long it takes you to make Grandmaster. But there's no question you have the physical skill. There's no question that you have most of the speed that you need, and the accuracy is 100% mental. Okay,
All right.
Joe, any thoughts on how accuracy is mental?
Yeah, you'll either make the choice to, assuming you can control when the gun goes off, which you should be able to, then you'll either choose to only let it go off when you have an acceptable sight picture, or you won't. And it might be oversimplifying it a little bit, right? Because, so like, I've never heard, Travis used the word indexing. I posted a video of me doing some dry fire with my GoPro, and he said that my indexing was really good. And I think I said something snarky like, I know, but I didn't know what he meant by it. But it means, if here's the target, the gun coming right to that point on the target, coming to that point, indexing to the target. So you're like, things like that you can work on, right? Like if you have your eyes ahead of the gun more and you have that next target into focus more, your eyes are gonna be able to tell your brain to tell your muscles where to put the gun better. So there's technique things that will affect accuracy, but in the end, let's say I swing the gun past the target. I'm still gonna have to either choose to wait to fire the gun until the sights do find their way back to where they need to be, or I won't.
Yeah, so what I think index means is your ability to put the gun where you're looking is what I think that means.
Yeah.
And they used to talk about it back in the very earliest days of the internet, the Brian Enos forums. They used to talk about it a lot, and it basically means your ability to put the gun where you're looking. And that was the first thing I noticed in dry fire with iron sights, is after about a week, I didn't have to aim the gun anymore. I was aimed at whatever I looked at.
Yeah.
It was super easy. But Courtney, his oversimplification is actually quite beautiful. You're going to choose that having an acceptable sight picture and leaving only acceptable shots is more important than pulling the trigger quickly. And shot calling drills, which I know we did on day one before we got rained out. I know we did shot calling drills, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I still do those. I still do those.
Good. And remember, the only mistake you can make in those shot calling drills is to stand there and shoot perfect alphas. Right? You need to see what you can get away with. Jay Beal talks about learning to see less, which is kind of scary to say out loud for some of the people that might be listening. But what he's learning is, what can I get away with? What is the bare minimum I need to see to leave an acceptable shot? And that to me is more profound with iron sights, because iron sights has this whole range of what you can see. But if we're primarily target focused, either the sights are acceptably aligned or they're not. And what he said is, in match mode, you're going to make the choice to make that be more important than anything else. Right. All right, Courtney, what other questions do you have for Joey on your road to Grandmaster?
That was about it. He pretty much answered most of it.
Okay. Now, Joe, one thing that people may not know about you is you did not set that as a primary goal. What was your primary goal?
You have about not setting Grandmaster as a primary goal?
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Being national champion was my goal. And I think the first time I was on your range, whenever that was, year and a half, closer to 2 years ago, I told you that because I wanted to verbalize it so that you knew. But yeah, I told you, I was like, I'm going to be a national champion. So becoming Grandmaster was kind of just a byproduct.
That's right. And 5 state championships under your belt?
Yeah.
And going to the Nationals this year, I assume?
Oh yeah, and it's in Ohio, so it's actually right by your house.
That's right. It's very close. That's exactly right. I might be able to be there. When is Limited Nationals?
First week, I think it's October 8th weekend, or it's in October.
I'll probably be able to be there. I don't have a lot going on in October, I don't think. But we'll see what happens.
Mm.
Would it make you more nervous or less nervous if I showed up and hung out with you?
I don't know. October's a long way away. I might be a totally different person by then.
Think of all the things you'll have learned.
I'm telling you, I go in. Part of it's volume, right? You know, just like anything. If you get a new car, right, and you drive it once, you don't know what to look for. You don't know what's better, what's worse. You go dry fire for 1,000 hours, right? Run the numbers, right? Find out how many days and how many weeks that's going to take, right? But dry fire for 1,000 hours, and you'll have plenty to work on. Like if it was a car, you'd say, oh man, the suspension could use some tuning here in this car, and I don't know anything about cars, but other things, man, this other thing that's important to this car that's different in other cars could be adjusted. Like you find more things, and they all make more sense, and then you talk about them to people who don't know anything about cars, like me, and they're just.
So I'll give you a great example. I stayed with a guy in Tennessee when we did some IDPA work down there, big time car guy. He writes articles for car magazines, all the rest of it. And he said the Mustang and the Camaro do the same thing, but they do it in ways that are so different that they're like different machines. And I was like, okay, I knew they were different, but I'd never heard anybody say they were completely different animals. So that's a guy like you're talking about. He's got enough seat time of both of those to know that Mustang and Camaro are wildly different. Only thing I know is that the Mustang is far superior, and that's really all that matters, right? So, Courtney, one thing I want you to understand, and anybody else who's listening to this program wants to be a grandmaster, that process is measured in hours, not days, weeks, months, or years.
That's the key.
Measured in hours. So however many hours you can invest, that will reduce the days, weeks, months, and years. And making grandmaster may not be the same thing as becoming state champion, national champion, right? So so you might train in a different way than you would for match domination. I will freely admit that when I made grandmaster, I did not care about major match performance. I did not have a goal beyond the G card. All I wanted was USPSA to say, yep, Anderson's awesome. That's all I wanted. And that's because I came out of the music business kind of a perceived failure. I didn't like how I left the music business, and I needed somebody's stamp of approval. So I didn't care what happened after that. Other people might care, right? In Joey's case, it was more important for him to dominate larger matches than it was to be a GM. For him, that was a byproduct, and that's totally fine. Right? Just be aware that making grandmaster might be a little bit different kind of training than dominating matches, right? Talk about that a little bit, Joey. What did you do because your goal is national champion as opposed to just getting the G card? Did you approach things a little bit differently than you would have if all you wanted was the G?
Yeah. Approached him with an outlook of, a long-term outlook. I never thought like, oh man, if I have to win my club match this weekend, because if I don't, that means I'm not making enough. I was like, no, I'm going to be a national champion, and that's a big deal, and that's going to take years. So just keep on working. I know that helped a lot. Not getting caught up in the short term. Yeah.
And that brings me to deadlines. People talk about deadlines all the time. Deadlines can be dangerous, and deadlines can be helpful. The only way a deadline is helpful is if you can dramatically increase your level of participation, right? And what that means is if Joey has to be a national champion this year for some reason, he has got to live his life completely differently than if he wants to be a national champion some year. You understand the difference? Right? You'd have to get on the Eric Goffel live fire program. Did you see that on the Instagram, Joey?
I think that would take longer.
my point is, if it had to be this year, you would have to train even harder than you're currently training.
Sure, certainly.
That's the only way a deadline is useful, is if you can exponentially increase your training.
Or I'm training just hard enough, and this October I'll be national champion.
Hey, bud, nobody's rooting for you more than me.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe Courtney, maybe
Yeah.
Courtney will now be on practice score competitor while you're shooting limited nationals and text each other back and forth. Look at Joey, he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it.
I wanted to add another note about match mode and having not letting the gun go off unless the sights are where they need to be. One time at a class in the past where me and my cousin Michael were there, you said that he was boring to watch and I was exciting to watch. And our times on the small stage we set up, our times were about the exact same. Maybe mine was, I don't know, a 1/10 of a second faster, nothing significant. But that I was exciting to watch because I was moving aggressively and fast and I had faster splits. And he was boring to watch because he was just moving smoothly and just pop, 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 pop. And that's one thing that I've noticed is my match performance, which these days is usually completely subconscious. I never try to do anything. Anytime I hear someone say the word try, I'm thinking you're on the wrong track. I used to do mostly speed mode, and then the last, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months or so, probably more like 3 months, I've been doing a lot more accuracy mode. And my match performance has directly reflected that, which at first I was upset because I would watch my videos and I'd watch a video from, a year ago, and the video from a year ago would look much cooler, right? The video from a year ago would, just blew the new one out of the water. And I'm watching my current video. I'm like, man, this is boring. This is lame. A year ago, I was ripping it. So what's the difference? But I was reassured because I frequently, and I don't know if Niels Jonathan listens to your podcast, but if he does, this isn't meant to be insulting. It's meant to be a compliment. But
well, you already told him he was dumb for shooting minor, so he's going to be mad either way. So you might as well go ahead and say what you.
No. It's not dumb. I think he did that to show that he could, right?
Sure.
Not that it could be done, but he did it to show that look how good I am, which he is that good because he did it. Mm-hmm. But we'll send videos of him. He'll post a video of him shooting a stage at a match. I'll send it to Michael or send it to me, and we'll just send the caption like, this guy sucks. This guy's just garbage. We're watching him shoot, and there's just nothing impressive about it. It's not crazy fast. He never has any fast splits. And I'm watching, national guy who just racks up national championships and world championships for decades. I'm watching him shoot, and I'm like, man, this guy sucks. He's not cool at all. I'm watching him shoot. There's nothing impressive about it at all. And lately, because I've been working on my accuracy more, my videos, my GoPro videos and my third-person videos are starting to look a lot more like his because, one, my singular point of focus is much more just calling my shots. And my training is reflecting a lot more accuracy mode because I've been the fastest for a while. But it was my accuracy that was holding me back, and I'm now just seeing myself kind of turn into shooting the same way as him. Mm-hmm. So that would be the biggest thing. You got to accept that sometimes it's going to feel slow, and sometimes it's going to seem boring. But Christian Zeiler just yesterday posted a video on his Instagram of him shooting a stage, and the caption of the video was something that you yourself said just a few minutes ago, Steve. The gun goes wherever your eyes are looking. And I watched the video and I thought, man, that was boring, because he just, what did he do? All he did was just shoot alphas at the pace that his eyes and the gun would let him and did absolutely nothing else in between. And it was just boring. And he just shot more points faster than everybody else and did nothing else. It was boring. It wasn't cool.
I cannot wait to post the clickbait of this podcast that says UGM talks trash about world champions. We're going to break the internet, right? Yeah. All right. fast, right? Your accuracy opportunity is 100% mental. And he is absolutely right. When you're shooting what you need to see, it will be boring. And if you want to make it more exciting, add like a ladies professional tennis player grunt to every exit that you do, like Joey does. What does that sound like, Joe, when you leave a position?
I actually never do the grunt. I just breathe very heavily the entire time.
Let's hear it. Come on, let's hear one.
What, the heavy breathing? You want me to heavy breathe on your podcast?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. Again, there's no vocalization. It's just. My mouth really close to the camera just to make sure we pick it up.
Joey Sauerland talks smack about world champions and breathes heavy on that. All right, I want to thank you both for joining me. It's been a whole lot of fun. Courtney, my advice to you is let's understand match mode so that you can get access to the speed you've currently got. And so, and that is a decision that you make. So the best way to describe it is when you're in match mode and you're properly guided by your focus phrase or your point of focus, what you get is a circuit between your eyes and your trigger that doesn't involve your brain. And so you're just watching the gun, good, 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 not so good, 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 let's fix that, good, 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 everything's good, right? Joey, would you describe that any different way?
Acceptable sight pictures. I think if you're going to do live fire, which you could do standing at an indoor range, I don't know if you couldn't really paste up the back of the target the way I would, but shot calling without looking at the paper target, be able to say where your bullets went. And if you're able to call your shots, you'll know whether or not they're going to be acceptable.
Well, and one good thing about indoor ranges is that it's usually pretty difficult to see your bullet holes. That's one great thing about indoor ranges. And we know he's able because his last name is Able.
Yeah.
That should have seemed a little bit more profound than when I said it out loud. I was hoping for a little bit more, no, nothing. No.
Yeah.
No, even just a nice polite golf clap. Yeah, good job, Anderson. Good job.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right. So once again, gentlemen, let me just make sure I covered everything. We did cover everything. Joey, would you like to thank your sponsors?
Oh, yeah, big time. I shoot Masterpiece Arms. They make really good guns and they got really great people down there too. When you guys listening to this podcast inevitably get a Masterpiece Arms gun, man, anytime you need something done to it, you want something to work a little bit differently, you want something to be a little bit smoother, man, the guys down there can do it. You see them at a big match, or if you ever stop by their shop, I mean, they do really great work and then amazing customer service too. Let's see, Hunters HD Gold, you already covered them. Who else we got? Outdoor Dynamics, that's it.
Okay. And didn't you just start a brass company? Aren't you doing brass now?
Oh yeah, my own company. Yeah. Action Brass Co. You go to www.actionbrassco.com. That's my side business right now. We fully and partially process once fired brass. And 10% of all of our profits go back to shooting clubs directly. So probably quarterly or semi-annually, we're going to just cut checks to clubs that put on good matches. So like Bluegrass Sportsman League in Kentucky, they're one of them. But yeah, go source your brass from there if you're not going to buy full ammo from Outdoor Dynamics.
And I will be giving John Warrior a metric crap ton of 9mm brass Saturday at the Cardinal Falling Steel match. And I think you're going to get most of it because he doesn't really have a need for it.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, do you give it to him to use?
I'm giving it to him to give to you.
Oh, great.
Because he said he didn't particularly need it, but he said he's going to be seeing you, so I think you're going to get it. So you're going to be getting thousands of 9mm brass, and it's not from my range. Scott, I see you looking concerned about that. It isn't from my range. It's just brass I've had for years that I'm not going to use.
Great.
He's like, I cannot wait to get the muddy brass that's been under your range for the last 6 years. All right, guys, thank you once again. And I just want to remind everybody listening to this program, the path to Grandmaster is a lot easier if you get obsessed with it, as opposed to thinking about it or kind of wanting it. If you get obsessed like I did, you get obsessed like Joey did, it will be measured in hours, not days, weeks, months, or years. The primary thing you need to do in dry fire is get stupid fast, and then balance that with the ability, the mental decision to leave only acceptable shots in competition. That's all you need to do, those two things. Courtney, you think you can do those things?
Yep, definitely.
All right. Joey,
Already doing it.
anything else to add?
No, I think that's it. Shoot more USPSA.
All right, guys. Have a great day. And until we meet again in Ohio or California or anywhere else, be like me, do what I do, say it with me. 1, 2, 3. What is it?
Get to work.
Get to work.
Get to work.